Chewbacca's family is the most famous thing here. And yes, I am starting with that, because everyone remembers it even if they pretend not to. The moment that Wookiee living room appeared on screen, something broke in American television. People laughed later. At the time, kids froze. Adults stared. This was supposed to be safe fun. Instead, it felt wrong in a way you could not explain. Tonight, we are counting down the strangest one-off 70s TV specials that aired once, then vanished. No reruns, no fixes, just ghosts. Starting at the bottom and crawling upward toward the stuff that should never have existed. Let us be honest. This thing is not scary because of monsters or danger. It is scary because it feels like you walked into someone else's house at night. No one explains why you are there. Chewbacca's family is the problem. It always was. You expect aliens to feel strange. That is fine. What is not fine is watching them sit silently in a living room, staring at screens for long stretches, while strange music plays and nothing happens. No subtitles, no guide, just noise and fur and blinking lights. Chewbacca's father, Itchy, is the one that gets under your skin. He is old, he is slow, he groans. He watches hologram entertainment with a focus that feels too intense. There is a famous scene people joke about now, but strip away the jokes, and it plays like something forbidden. A kid's special stopping dead to let you watch an alien experience pleasure while the camera lingers. That is not parody. That is a network failing to say no. Why was this scary? Because it broke rules kids did not know were rules yet. Star Wars was clean. Star Wars made sense. Heroes talked, villains threatened. This special removes structure, long silent stretches, characters who do not react the way humans do. You feel trapped inside their house waiting for it to end. That feeling is pure childhood panic. You cannot change the channel because maybe it will make sense if you wait. It aired once because even the people who made it knew something went wrong. It was buried because it showed how thin the line was between fun fantasy and accidental nightmare. Kids did not forget it. They just learned to laugh later. On paper, this should be harmless. Laugh track, celebrities, costumes, songs. But Paul Lynde was already an odd presence. Sharp voice, bitter jokes, that smile that never felt warm. Put him in a Halloween setting and the whole thing tilts sideways. The scary character here is not a monster. It is Paul himself. He stands at the center dressed as something between host and haunted object. He insults guests. He mocks children watching at home. He delivers jokes that land wrong, then stares straight into the camera, as if daring you to react. That eye contact matters. 70s TV rarely did that. Here it feels aggressive. Then there are the guests. Kiss shows up in full makeup before America was ready. They loom. They do not soften themselves. They look like villains who wandered in from a different channel. Margaret Hamilton appears again as the Wicked Witch, and she does not play it cute. She plays it tired and angry like she never escaped the role and maybe never will. That scares kids more than cackling ever could. Why did this get under people's skin? Because it felt mean. Most kids' TV fear comes from danger. This came from hostility. The jokes feel sharp. The smiles feel forced. The mood swings between silly and bitter without warning. One moment, dancing skeletons. Next moment, a joke that sounds like it hates being told. It aired once because Halloween specials are supposed to feel fun, and this one felt uncomfortable. Parents did not complain loudly. They just did not turn it on again. Kids remembered, though. They remembered that sometimes adults laughed at things that felt wrong, and that realization sticks longer than any monster mask. Everyone talks about how silly this one looks now. Cheap costumes, bad jokes, heroes acting like uncles at a barbecue, but that is adult hindsight. As a kid, this thing hit wrong in a quiet way. These were supposed to be gods. Instead, they felt tired, off, slightly angry. The scariest character here is Batman, and that sounds ridiculous until you remember what Batman usually is. Controlled, silent, sharp. In this special, he is stiff. He smiles too late. He reacts like a man wearing someone else's skin. When Batman feels fake, the world feels unsafe. Kids rely on him to be solid. Here he wobbles. Then there is the Legion of Doom. They are played for laughs, but the makeup is heavy. The colors are wrong. Faces look waxy under studio lights. You are told to laugh, but your brain says no, these people look like they escaped from somewhere. Or they sit around plotting like bored office workers, which somehow makes them worse. Evil without passion feels unpredictable. Why was this scary? because it stripped myth away. Superheroes were not cool yet. They were still mysterious figures passed down through reruns and comics. Seeing them reduced to awkward skits felt like watching adults embarrass something sacred. Kids do not have the language for that feeling, but they feel it anyway. It aired once because it pleased no one. Kids were confused. Adults were embarrassed. The network learned that not everything colorful belongs in daylight. The damage was already done, though. For some kids, this was the first time heroes looked fragile, and once that door opens, it never fully closes. This one does not scare you fast. It sneaks up. You think you are safe because you know these people. You grew up with them. That is exactly the problem. The scary characters here are the Bradys themselves. All of them, smiling too hard, singing songs that do not match their voices, moving like puppets who were just told what joy looks like. The disconnect is brutal. Mike Brady especially. He sings with the energy of a man trapped in a job he cannot quit. His eyes say, "Help me," while his mouth says applause. Then there is the uncanny switch. Actors replaced. Characters suddenly off by a few degrees. A Cindy who feels like a copy. A Jan who is louder. A Greg who looks like he aged 10 years overnight. Kids notice this instantly. Familiar faces changing without explanation is a nightmare trigger. Why did this unsettle people? Because it corrupted something safe. Ours, the Brady Bunch, was comfort TV. Soft lighting. Simple lessons. This special drags them into a loud, empty space with flashing lights and demands they perform happiness. It feels like watching your parents pretend everything is fine while the house is burning. It aired once because even fans could not defend it. It broke the illusion. Once you see characters you trust struggle to pretend you cannot unsee it. Kids learned a quiet lesson here, that adults will repaint things and call it better, even when it clearly is not. That lesson sticks. People lump this together like it was just another kids' show, but that misses the point. This thing felt alive in a bad way. It was not one show, it was a parade. It's a moving tunnel of costumes, music, shouting, and faces that never stopped smiling. That is why it scared kids. There was no rest point. The scariest characters were not even named. They were the Krofft creatures themselves. Giant heads. Rubber skin, eyes that did not blink at the right speed, mouths that opened too wide then snapped shut mid-sentence. They talked directly to the camera like they knew you were there. That matters. Kids do not like being seen by things that do not feel human. Then there was the tone shift problem. 1 minute, goofy songs. Next minute, weird moral lectures delivered by a character who looked like a rejected parade balloon. The lighting was harsh. Sets were shallow. Everything felt too close to your face. No depth, no escape. Just color noise and shouting. Why was this scary? Because it overloaded the brain. Saturday morning TV usually paced itself. Cartoons, then ads, then cartoons. This was non-stop stimulus before anyone used that word. Kids could not process it. Parents thought it was energetic. Kids felt hunted by it. It did not last because networks eventually realized there is a difference between imagination and chaos. The Krofft style worked in smaller doses. Here it became suffocating. For some kids, this was their first brush with the feeling of being overwhelmed by media. That buzzing, trapped feeling. And once you feel that, you never forget it. This one is barely remembered, which makes it worse. It was marketed as a wholesome Halloween variety, special for families. Bright costumes, paper pumpkins, laughing children, and then it just felt off. The scary character here is the host, a local TV-style magician brought in to guide the evening. He smiles constantly, but his eyes never settle. He moves too slowly between tricks. He holds pauses a second too long. Now, kids don't understand timing consciously, but they feel it. When rhythm breaks, safety breaks. The special features children brought on stage to participate in illusions. Harmless on paper, but the camera lingers on their nervous faces. The laughter feels forced. Applause arrives late. One child forgets a line, and the host corrects them sharply before smiling again. That sharpness cuts through the artificial cheer. Then there are the sets. Not professionally built, more like community theater props under harsh lights, painted gravestones, paper bats, shadows falling at strange angles. Nothing is polished enough to feel magical. It feels temporary, fragile, like the illusion could collapse at any moment. Why was this unsettling? Because it felt unstable. Halloween specials are supposed to offer controlled fear. This felt like something could actually go wrong, and kids are hyper-aware of adult incompetence. And when the adults don't seem fully in control, panic simmers. It aired once in most markets and quietly disappeared. Not canceled dramatically, just not invited back. The memory lingers because it taught a quiet lesson. Sometimes the people running the show are improvising, and that realization changes everything. Claymation is supposed to be soft, gentle, but early stop motion has a stiffness that borders on lifeless. And this special leaned directly into that discomfort without meaning to. The scary character here is the Easter Rabbit himself, not because he is evil, because he moves wrong. His eyes blink too slowly, his mouth opens without enough expression, his smile is permanent. Kids rely on micro-expressions to feel safe. When those cues don't line up, something in the brain flags it. The pacing drags, long stretches of walking through snow, minimal dialogue, quiet wind sounds. It feels empty. Isolation is a powerful trigger for children, especially when paired with artificial faces. Then there is the villain, a winter figure who is not exaggerated enough to be silly and not dynamic enough to be threatening. He just exists, cold, still, watching. The stillness is what gets under the skin. Why was this unsettling? Because claymation sits in the uncanny valley without realizing it. It looks handmade but not alive, warm in concept but cold in execution. Kids don't articulate that, or they just feel distance. It wasn't pulled for scandal. It simply failed to become tradition. No yearly rerun ritual, no cultural comfort layer built over it. So it remains frozen in memory. A holiday special that felt lonelier than the holiday itself. And loneliness is heavier than monsters. Everyone forgets this existed, which is wild because it was deeply strange. Soft rock harmonies, matching outfits, endless smiling, all broadcast like a sermon disguised as a concert. The scary character here is the group as a unit. They move together, sing together, finish each other's lines. No friction, no surprise. It feels less like a band and more like a single organism. Kids notice that. Humans are not supposed to be that synchronized. Their smiles never break, ever. Even between songs, even during jokes. That constant cheer reads as pressure, as if something bad happens if the smile drops. The songs are gentle, but the lyrics repeat simple, positive ideas over and over. Love together, joy forever, keep believing. Repetition matters. It feels hypnotic. The staging makes it worse. Close cameras, soft focus, warm lights. Everything designed to feel comforting. But comfort pushed too hard becomes suffocating. There is no edge, no contrast, on just pleasant noise that will not let you breathe. Why was this scary? Because kids sense when emotions are being guided, manipulated. This felt like being told how to feel for an hour straight without being allowed to disagree. Kids hate that. Even nice instructions feel threatening when they remove choice. It did not continue because audiences drifted, not angry, just tired. That is always the sign, when something drains energy instead of giving it back. Kids who remember this special talk about feeling sleepy but uneasy, like falling asleep in a room where strangers are watching you. That is a specific fear, and once you feel it, you never forget it. This one sounds harmless, a Disney property, a talking cat, family tone, safe branding. That is exactly why it lands wrong. The scary character here is the cat itself, not because it is evil, because it speaks without moving. The mouth does not animate. The voice comes from nowhere. Kids expect physical cause and effect. When a creature's face stays still but words appear, something in the brain misfires. When the special edit that aired on television trimmed pacing, removed connective scenes, and left long reaction shots hanging in silence. The cat stares. Humans stare back. No music, just studio quiet. It feels less like comedy and more like waiting. Then there is the collar, glowing, humming, unexplained in detail. It controls technology. Doors open, machines start. Adults are panic mildly, but recover quickly. The threat is underplayed. That underplaying makes it worse. Kids sense the power imbalance immediately. This small animal can override the world. Why was this unsettling? Because it destabilized hierarchy. Pets are supposed to be dependent. This one was superior, calm, observing, slightly amused. It never feels grateful. It never feels attached. It feels like it is studying humans. The suburban settings add to it. Kitchens, living rooms, normal houses, nothing stylized. When strange intelligence enters an ordinary domestic space without resistance, or it reads as invasion. It aired in this trimmed format once in many markets and never became appointment television. The theatrical version had pacing, context, structure. This cut felt fragmented, quiet in the wrong places, lingering where it should not. Kids who remember it do not recall jokes. They recall staring, the sense that something smaller than you might actually be in control, and the idea that adults would not fully notice. That subtle reversal, where the pet watches the family instead of the other way around, is what lingers. And once that idea lands, it never completely leaves. This one wasn't marketed as horror. It wasn't even marketed as strange. It was positioned as light supernatural comedy. Suburban setting, attractive couple, harmless mind-reading premise. Safe. That safety is what makes it unsettling. On the show starred Sally Field as a newlywed with telepathic abilities. On paper, that's whimsical. In execution, especially in its early broadcast special edit on ABC, it felt invasive. The scary element isn't a monster. It's the idea that someone can hear every thought in the room, and no one can stop it. Scenes play in bright living rooms. Laugh track cues you to relax. But then she pauses mid-conversation and repeats a private thought another character never said aloud. The husband laughs it off. The friends adjust. The plot moves forward. But children don't laugh it off, because the concept lands differently when you're young. Adults treat telepathy as a gimmick. Kids understand it as exposure. No secrets, no inner space. Every insecurity potentially audible. There are moments where she stares slightly past the person speaking, listening to thoughts instead of words. That half-second delay is tiny, but it registers. It feels like she's reacting to something unseen. The tonal problem is what doomed it. The laugh track insists this is charming. The premise quietly suggests constant surveillance. Those two ideas do not sit comfortably together. Why didn't it stick? Because it never found equilibrium. Too psychologically intrusive for a cozy sitcom, too bright and cheerful to lean into tension. It aired, drifted, and faded. But for some kids watching in the early 70s, what had planted a subtle fear. What if adults can hear you thinking? And what if they just pretend they can't? That kind of fear doesn't scream. It hums quietly under the surface, long after the episode ends. This one masqueraded as a supernatural anthology for families, short stories, moral endings, candlelit host segments. But one segment tipped the scale. The scary character is not a ghost. It is the narrator. He speaks softly, or too softly. He never raises his voice. He maintains steady eye contact with the camera for entire monologues. No blinking, no music underneath, just stillness. One story involves a child who sees something adults refuse to acknowledge. The creature is barely shown, mostly implied. What matters is the disbelief. The child insists. The parents dismiss. The narrator watches silently. Why was this unsettling? Because it validated a specific childhood fear. Not being believed. But the horror is not the creature. It is the calm certainty of adults saying you imagined it. The lighting is dim but not theatrical. Living room darkness, hallway shadows, real spaces. That realism anchors the unease. No fantasy filter, just suggestion. It aired quietly and did not establish a franchise. Too subdued for thrill seekers, too ambiguous for comfort viewing. It lived in that gray area where psychological fear sits. Kids who saw it remember one feeling above all: isolation. The sense that something might be wrong and no one will help you. That kind of fear does not fade. Before cancellation meant tweets and think pieces, it meant silence. Turn On aired once on ABC in February 1969. Some affiliates cut away mid-broadcast. One station switched to a weather slide. Others simply went dark. The network canceled it before the West Coast even saw the ending. That is how fast something can disappear. And the scary character isn't a monster. It's the format. No laugh track, no traditional sketches. Performers, including a pre-Carol Burnett fame Tim Conway, delivered rapid-fire, fragmented bits directly into camera. Hard cuts, abrupt punchline, faces frozen mid-expression, silence where applause should be. Television in 1969 followed rules. Setup, joke, audience laughter, reset. Turn On removed the reassurance. Jokes ended without permission. Camera angles shifted before your brain caught up. Our actors stared into the lens a beat too long. Without a laugh track to guide children at home, the rhythm felt hostile, unfinished, like walking into a room mid-argument. Parents didn't protest loudly. They just reached for the dial. Why was this frightening? Because it felt unstable, live, uncontained. The humor was suggestive for the era, yes, but that wasn't the core problem. The core problem was structure collapsing on live television. Kids watching didn't understand satire theory. When they understood discomfort, they felt the absence of safety rail, and then it vanished. No reruns, no second chance, no soft re-edit for summer. It became a rumor, a thing adults referenced carefully. That show that got pulled. That immediate erasure makes it more powerful than the specials that limped along quietly. This one didn't fade. It was yanked. That sudden disappearance teaches something unsettling. Television can fail in real time. And when it does, it doesn't scream. It just goes dark. And that is the thing people forget. None of these were meant to scare anyone. That is why they worked. They slipped past the filters, past the warnings. They showed up in living rooms in the middle of the day and left little cracks behind. If you watched these and felt weird for years without knowing why you were not broken, the TV was. If you remember one of these differently or swear something worse existed, tell me. I believe you. Because the 70s were messy and television lied about being safe.